Hi friends, it's me. I'm just coming in quickly before the video starts as I am editing and moving forward. Thank you so much for all of the great feedback and comments and compliments and attention from my last video. I honestly am really floored at just how well it was received. So thank you so much. And because of all of this attention on the last video, I actually was able to monetize my YouTube channel. So thank you so much for everything that you guys did. Every comment, every like, every view. It really made a difference, and I'm so excited that you liked it. This video is a little different from my last one. It's more historical and it's more community-based within a specific town in Dublin, so enjoy that. But seeing just how much you guys liked the culture shock video and the kind of American versus Dublin thing that I had, I am going to start doing a little bit more of that kind of thing on my channel. We'll be exploring Dublin. We'll be talking about American and Irish history, shorter videos, more light videos. And so excited to be talking about the town that I'm going to be talking about in this video. I love this place. This was the first place I moved to when I moved to Ireland. And so it has a really big sentimental meaning for me. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for all of your attention and your great comments on the last video and all of the new people that have joined me here. You guys are amazing. I can't wait to talk more about it. Okay, that's enough serious stuff. Just so grateful for how this moved forward. So, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you. Okay, enjoy the video.
Oh no, I was just about to start this video and oh, here we go. Phew. Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Hannah Ruth Savita, aka The Woman in Wool, and on this channel we crochet and we talk history. Let's grab the crochet so we're on brand. And why do we do this? Because true crime and makeup are oversaturated. Just kidding. It's because in 2016 I moved from New York to Ireland, and ever since then I've made it my entire personality. That is correct. You can think of this channel as a love letter to this incredible country. Now, jumping right into it. Dublin is a small city, and funny enough, the population has actually doubled since I got here. Friggin' insane, huh? Did not realize that until I was making this video. But it is a smaller city with a population of around 1.2 million people at the time of making this video, or at the time of Googling and writing this down on the Word document that I got it on. Compared to Paris's 11 million or London's nearly 10 million, it is a much more walkable and manageable place than some other capital cities, which is why it is so interesting just how distinct every Dublin neighborhood is. So for those who are not part of the 1.2 million people who call Dublin their home, Dublin is broken down into different ways. So we can start with the basics. Air codes. The air code is a lot like an American postcode or an American zip code. It just tells the postman and the government where you live. It's important for things like registering to vote, legal addresses, etc., etc. And Dublin has 24 major air codes with different little subsects in them. So for example, D1, D2, D3, D4, all the way up to D24. And like specifically you can have like D12, B24, that kind of thing. But this is more than just data and delivery location. Each air code comes with a historic reputation, a historic name for itself backed up by historical events, socioeconomic class of those who live there, and the attention or funding it gets from local government. So that would be like one quick way to get a judgment of somebody immediately. When they say the town that they live in or the air code that they might live in, people will sometimes make rash judgments about that person and assumptions about their life. Kind of the same as everywhere else. Like if you say you're from a certain part of New York, you get judgments on that, etc., etc. Another big contributor to differentiating and judging Dublin townships would be what side of the major river, the Liffey, that you live on. The north being historically more sketchy or dodgy, and the south being the posher or the richer areas. Obviously in today's economy, much like any other major city, the closer you get to the city, the more expensive it gets, and the further out you get, the less expensive it gets. And in general, like these kinds of judgments have kind of faded into view. Not 100%, but they are less so than maybe 20, 30 years ago. Like obviously these judgments still exist, but I think less so now than they would have been a couple years ago. And actually I would say that in like the millennial generation and younger, these judgments are more of a joke than anything else. Like if somebody is likable and a good person and nice to be around, you might tease them a little bit for being from a rough area, but you wouldn't judge them or make any actions towards them. Like more of a tease, like, oh, stay away from this one, you know what I mean? More of a joke than anything else. But old biases do sometimes hold strong, and things like air code, Liffey position, and even accent have a bearing on the perception of the town that you may live in or you as a person might be. But what's interesting is when I moved to Ireland 7 years ago, I had no idea about any of these, obviously, and I didn't know that where I was plopped down was historically a sketchy neighborhood. And so as a newcomer with fresh eyes and no historic bias, and without any idea of how to like tell the difference between two very different Dublin accents, I could not see why when I told people where I lived, they were taken aback. I'm like, oh no, you're living out there? Was there nowhere else to live? Oh, and how's that going? You like it, do you? Be very careful now out there. It's not the best of areas. You're not living alone out there, huh? And my favorite, why did you choose to live out there? Because what I saw when I moved out there was just the town for what it was, as somebody seeing it for the very first time, with no bias or prejudgment attached. I saw Clondalkin. And for my Dublin friends out there, it's all kind of starting to make sense. Oh, she moved into a dodgy part of town, didn't know the difference, and there's a reason she doesn't live there anymore. But the joke's on you guys. I live in an even sketchier part of Dublin now. But I want to push through all the biased headlines and the scary ideas about the fringe areas of Clondalkin. And I want to tell you guys the history about this so-called dodgy or dangerous part of town. And I want to talk to you about the real village of Clondalkin and the strong sense of community and love that you get from this village. But I'm going to show you guys the Clondalkin that I know and the one that I've grown to love immensely over the last 7 years. First things first, Clondalkin is a suburb of the city of Dublin with around 47,000 people in the total area, but the village area or historic area is far less, I believe. And the name means Dalkin's Meadow in Irish. Now, up until maybe the last 30-40 years, Clondalkin was considered fairly outside of the city of Dublin, but now with Lewis lines and bus lines that go in and out of Clondalkin all the time, you can get into town within 30 minutes or so, depending on where you're going. But even being so close to Dublin city centre, it feels private. It feels small, almost like a country village would feel, especially with the way people talk to each other like they've known you for years. What's interesting is that even though Clondalkin is a small town and it has a small town atmosphere with a friendly, close-knit people, it's close enough to Dublin City where the population is actually ethnically quite diverse and is consistently growing. So it makes it almost impossible to kind of be in each other's business in like a mean-spirited way or in like a really committed sort of way. So it feels open-minded enough where it feels almost like a city, but small town and close-knit enough where it feels like a village. I feel like it gives me the best of both worlds. Clondalkin is said to be founded by Saint Cronain Mahua, one of those is right. You'll let me know. And that was around 1400 years ago. So roughly the 6th or 7th century AD as a monastic settlement. So meaning that it was for religious leaders to come and learn and live. About 200 years later in 790 AD, the most recognizable part of the Clondalkin landscape showed up. And that was the Round Tower. It was built around 200 or 300 years earlier than most other similar round towers were in Ireland. So it's one of the older ones. And because there are relatively few of these, they are cherished and preserved. What's funny is I was told that the one in Clondalkin, the Round Tower in Clondalkin, is one of the only ones to still have the original roof on it. Some of the other round towers in Ireland obviously do have the original roofs on it, but the Clondalkin one is one of maybe like 6 or 7 that do in the whole country. A lot of them have lost the original roofs because they're made of natural materials like wood. You get it. So actually this tower this year is 4 years old. 1,234 years old. That's kind of fun. And the tower is smack in the middle of the village today. It marks the town center and it is the defining feature and kind of the mascot for the town. Hence all of these sports teams and the clubs that are named after the Round Tower. The Round Tower was said to be built for a few different reasons. One being storage, and other religious purposes, and maybe one for surveillance or protection instances. I think it was probably a combination of everything. There are steps inside of the Round Tower where you could go up, and actually up until I think the early 2000s in Clondalkin, you could go up and take a look inside the tower that's 1,000 years old. I actually have friends who have been inside of the tower and gone up, but I got here, after it was closed down for preservation purposes. And they do tell me stories of being a kid and sitting like in the little top window. And I'm like, what a childhood, You're a child, it's 2004, you're 12 years old, and you've made your way up a 1,000-year-old tower just to hang out with your friends. We used to hang out at a Starbucks parking lot. You understand the difference, right? I can't describe to you. Anyway, and so actually if you go up in it, you can see for miles once you're up there, especially before a lot of the surrounding areas were developed. Clondalkin was essentially just farmlands and fields, and so it did make a very good vantage point for people who wanted to look out for Viking raiders or see towards the shore of Dublin, because you could see as far as that when it was empty. You get it. And what's actually pretty cool is I went to the Viking Museum in Oslo in like 2019, and I saw a lot of stuff that had to do with Ireland because the Vikings did raid and take over Ireland and were a huge presence in Ireland in the before 1000 AD kind of era. And they actually had pictures and projections of these round towers that were present all over Ireland at the time. And it's interesting to see it from the other perspective. So like in Ireland, they're like, yeah, it was to look out for Vikings. The Vikings were like, they had all these things going around. We knocked them down. And so the Vikings first came to Ireland in around 795 and plundered Clondalkin in the 830s. from what I've gathered. And because the Vikings became somewhat Christianized due to the native Irish influence, the Watery Lane Church was built by them and the Clondalkinites in Clondalkin, and it still stands today. But that was of course because Clondalkin was originally a monastery, hence the Viking interest in the area. And the Vikings liked to take over monasteries due to their cultural and trading significance for the area. Now, before we get into the actual good stuff, I actually have to say 2 or 3 things about the schools in Clondalkin because they lead into who the town is. There are a few schools for teens and children in Clondalkin, one of which is Mount St. Joseph, which has had a few locations all in Clondalkin. And actually, the Daniel O'Connell was a patron for this Clondalkin school. You know, the liberator. And for those who don't know, Daniel O'Connell was one of the most influential liberators in Irish history. He was non-violent, he was a peaceful liberator, and he took actions and made differences for Catholic rights here in Ireland and Irish rights, and he was the first Catholic man to ever serve on the British Parliament, making it possible for native representation in the British Parliament at that time. And actually, the main street in the capital city of Dublin is named O'Connell Street after him. And he was the patron of the school, which I think is pretty cool. Another thing to mention is many of the schools in Clondalkin teach in Irish. They don't just teach Irish. They speak Irish all day, every day. All of their lessons take place in Irish. It's called a Gael school. And not everywhere has these as a reference. Upon a quick search, this is what I found. I'll put a picture up on screen. And just bearing in mind that this would cover everything, including primary, secondary, boys and girls schools. So it's interesting that Clondalkin, being such a small village, would have so many of these. And that makes learning Irish and speaking Irish a real priority in the town. And you can see it everywhere. People are speaking Irish to each other in the streets, in the shops, just at churches, everywhere. They'll bring it in and out of English conversations, and they'll just use Irish words in and around their English conversations, as well as having full conversations in Irish just out and about, which was interesting to me because I didn't even know Irish was a language when I moved here. So imagine my surprise when they all started talking in it. I had to relearn. And now I get to get into kind of the heart of Clondalkin. While the headlines would have you believe that Clondalkin is nothing but statistics and violence, that is not the Clondalkin I know at all. Now, don't get me wrong, crime rate is nothing to scoff at, and headlines are nothing to scoff at. Crime rate should always be checked and listened to and believed. And the crime rate has been a concern as it continues to rise, not just in Clondalkin, but all over Ireland. But I want you guys to see what I see, who Clondalkin really is, the love and community that the people in Clondalkin keep alive every single day. And now, because the Irish language is a huge part of this experience, I am going to be focusing on the kind of cultural epicenter of Clondalkin, or the village of Clondalkin, which is Aras Cronain. Aras Cronain has been a hub for Irish language and the town's culture for years, and we will get into that. And it used to be a residential home of a local lord, and after the community came together, it became the culture center. And we're going to be talking to the 3 men who are kind of the heart and soul of Aras Cronain and keep it alive and focus on bringing the community together through it. But it's important to kind of give you the context of what Aras Cronain is. It is a house that has been transformed into a cultural center, but there's a couple things that can't be described as. It's a cultural center, it's a pub, it's a learning center, it's a school. There is a school right behind the Aras Cronain for small children that has been going on for years. There are Irish lessons for children and adults that go on in Aras Cronain. It is an Irish language cultural center, which means that people do sometimes speak Irish there, but it is not a requirement to be able to go there. It is also a pub and a music center. It's a recording studio. It is a local theater and theater club. It is a performance space for well-known artists like Keela and others, and it is a source of pride for kind of everybody in Clondalkin, and including myself. I've been hanging out at the Aras now for like 7 years, and it's where I've met my best friend and my 3 godkids. You might see pictures of them behind me. There's a couple of them. One's up there, you can't see it. You'll see. And so the Aras has really brought community together and continues to bring community together. So I'm gonna cut here, and I have my questions here. I'm not texting, I promise. Brian, thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome.
What is your name and your responsibility here at Aras Cronain?
I'm Brian O'Govin, and I'm Chief Operation Officer. So I look after the whole place, top to bottom. All aspects of the operation of the place. Everything.
You're the head guy in charge. You're the guy to go to if you need anything Aras Cronain.
Exactly.
And they can reach you via email at the Aras Cronain, that kind of thing?
Aras Cronain account, or phone us, or there's always someone here. Leave a message.
Leave a message. We'll be back to you, don't worry. Are you originally from Clondalkin?
Yeah, I was born and reared in Clondalkin, so grew up here, went to school. Got involved in this when it was known as Muintir Cronain, which is the group who owned the place.
Yeah, I was wondering. So when I went onto the website, it says that Aras Cronain is owned by Muintir Cronain?
Muintir Cronain. There was a group of people who came together back in the mid-60s, and they wanted to send their kids to education, but all through the medium of the Irish language. And at the time, there was very few places that were doing that outside of the Gaeltacht areas in the country. So they set about setting up a junior school for kids. But they said while they were doing that, they would set up a social network outside of the school or the education system, so the language would be kept alive as a normal means of communication. So that's how it started out. Fast forward, they've founded 3 primary schools, 2 Nina, an all-Irish secondary school, and bought this place. Winter Cronain, the name comes from, in Clondalkin we have a round tower. Mm-hmm. And the round tower goes back to 400 something. Oh. To explain it simply, the head abbot or monk of the monastery at the time was a guy called Nave Macua Cronain, Saint Macua Cronain, and his parish or his patch of land was Clondalkin, Racool, Newcastle, Saggart, that part of Dublin where we are.
Southwestern Dublin.
And Wincher means the people of.
Oh, okay.
So Wincher Cronain, that's where they of Cronain's land. That's where that developed. But this whole, which we know now today in Ireland, is called the Gael School, which is all Irish schools, which was a phenomenon of the 90s that really kicked off.
Yeah.
So that was starting up. I put in for a job.
And you spoke Irish at the time already?
I had that basic Irish. So I got a job in the Gael School, and then I got involved here, and I was doing all the social events and kind of heavily involved in the committees of it. This is long before we put an extension on the hall and the whole lot. And then I decided I wanted to change careers, get out of teaching, and I went off to the Middle East, and I was teaching music out there for a few years. They kept asking me would I come back and manage the place because we were getting too big for a voluntary organisation. You know now, you're in the house here. Yeah. It's a big old house from 1845. Wow. Yeah, well, 1835 I think it was started when it was finished built. And it was a residential house then from then until Winter Cronain bought it in 1989 and renovated it and opened it to the public, renamed it Aras Cronain. It was called Orchard House. That's what it was.
Orchard House.
So yeah, that's where we're at today. So our core aim, to make it really, really simple, is keeping the Irish language alive as a means of communication. For people who are not from Ireland, that might sound a little bit strange, because if you look up our constitution, everything, our first language is Irish and all this. Unfortunately, or fortunately, or whatever way you look at it, we were colonised by Britain for a long, long time. The English language became the working language of the country. When Ireland got independence in the mid-1920s, the constitution was officially written where Irish and English would be of equal standing.
Yeah, still working on that, I suppose.
Yeah, it's an Irish thing. We just don't do things too quickly.
The Aras isn't, I mean, it is in Clondalkin, it's a pillar of Clondalkin. Would you say it's trying to kind of help Ireland as a whole as well with the Irish language?
Yeah, if in official circles, if I'm applying for funding or anything, I describe us as a community-based, non-for-profit social enterprise.
Okay.
That's
community-based, non-for-profit social
enterprise. The whole thing is set up legally. It had to be because of the premises and everything else and the whole running costs. I mean, to keep it very, very simple again, we have to find in and around 600,000 to 700,000 a year just to keep the operation going. We don't get annual core funding from any organisation.
Okay.
So we have to kind of beg and borrow and apply for multiple grants every year. And some could be for a once-off project, so it could be for a 3-year project. But what has happened is Aras Cronain as a building and as an entity has become a community centre. And we are known nationally and internationally for what we do. It's very successful. Like when you think about it, we own all of this.
This
wasn't given or donated.
Stuff.
This was bought and hard work and volunteers getting it together. There's me and another girl, Michelle, here. We're the only 2 full-time employees.
Okay.
We do everything from managing the house and the operation and the buildings to all our accounts, to online, to membership, to bills, to classes, to events, to bar, to staff, to preschool, to every aspect of it, website, IT, you name it.
Everything comes down to you and Michelle.
But it's fun. It's interesting. I'm sitting talking to you today.
Exactly.
Tomorrow I'm going to do a thing with our Chamber of Commerce. And then next week going to meet with government ministers and all this sort of thing.
This is a real passion.
Yeah, well, it's community, and that's what it is. We're caretakers, custodians, pass it on to the next generation in the best way we can. That's it simply.
When I first moved to Ireland, I moved to Clondalkin.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've seen a community quite like Clondalkin in a long time. It's very still much a village raises the kids, and everybody. It's a very tight knit kind of community without being exclusive. That's
It's old style community really, because I mean Clondalkin. I grew up here, so I went to school. My mum taught in Chicor, which is about 3 miles into town, so we were on the outskirts at the time, and we knew everybody on the bus. It was one of them, the bus terminus was at the end of our road. So that is still here, and what's lovely to see now is that I've grew up here, went to school here, taught, and then I went away for a few years and then came back and then managing this, but I see an awful lot of people who were born in Clondalkin who moved away are all trying to come back and raise their families back here, because it is a lovely little village. It is a lovely community about it,
and it's not too far from Dublin, where it seems like it's cut off or in the past, or like kind of.
We're on the right side of what we call the M50, which is the big ring road that wraps Dublin. Once you go inside that, you can get caught in
You're good to go.
So we can kind of, on a good day with no traffic, we can get to Dublin Airport in 15 minutes.
Yeah, there's a bus directly from Clondalkin to the Dublin Airport, the Red Cap.
That's right, the hopper, so it's ideal situation.
I do love Clondalkin. I often tell people, whenever I do buy a house, I'm going to try my best to live near enough to Clondalkin, because I do like it very much, and maybe it's like a bias thing because I moved here first, but it definitely for sure.
Good.
For whom was this house built? Like, who was the person who ordered the house to be built?
Again, go back 1800s.
1800s, yeah.
Most of the landlords were British. There was a big family here called the Calbecks.
Calbecks.
And they would have owned most of the land around this area of Dublin. They built this house for one of the daughters.
Oh, for one of the
daughters, yeah. And then it just went on through the years, changed hands, etc., etc. But what was interesting is recently we managed to get the original deeds back from the bank because we have no mortgage on the place anymore.
Nice.
Took a lot of going, but one day this big jiffy bag arrived, all taped and sealed, and what was in it? We opened it, but it's fascinating. There's the deeds going back to the 1800s that are handwritten and sealed with wax and everything. So we haven't even had a chance to sit down and read them. The last person to live in it, Clondalkin there's a shopping centre here called the Mill Shopping Centre.
Yeah.
There was a paper mills here in Clondalkin from the early 40s right through, and it was the biggest employer in this area of Dublin. And the manager of the paper mills, this was his residential house, Dr. Bert Cusick.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so he was doing okay for himself.
Yeah, he was doing okay. So when the guys actually were interested, they were going to actually build a clubhouse up the other side of Newlands Cross. But in 89, the paper mills closed in 87, 88. In 89, they heard it. Dr. Cusick was thinking of selling the house. So a group of them, or four of them, knocked on the door in March of 1989. He said he was delighted to see them come in.
Wow.
Because he'd been approached by developers and big companies and shopping centres, and he was very supportive of Clondalkin. He raised his family in Clondalkin, so he was really passionate about it. And he knew that if he sold this and the 3 acres of land right in the middle of the village to a developer, that it would be bulldozed and something.
That would be the end of that.
Well, he said he would agree to sell to them at market price on the condition they wouldn't knock it, and that would go totally against what we were about, which was preserving our language and our culture and our heritage.
100%.
So we do it a normal way, because as you know, you can come to Dublin, come to Ireland, come to any part, most parts of Ireland, and you won't hear Irish spoken every day of the week.
9 times out of 10, yeah.
Most of the population have an ability to speak the language. It's just they don't have opportunities because our working language is in English.
Yeah. And I suppose the world language as well is big.
Yeah, it's big. So we have it here where people are welcome from all backgrounds. We've 2 rules. We don't allow religion and politics across the gate. And that's not being flippant. The 2 rules aren't written, but they're 2 rules we implement really strongly, because our language and our culture and our heritage goes back thousands of years. Yeah. Religion and politics go back a couple of weeks, as the man says. and it, unfortunately, certain organisations like that use certain aspects of people's backgrounds and culture to their advantage, and this does not belong to anybody. As I always say to people, we can trace the English language back, what we speak today, about 800 or 900 years. You can trace the Gaelic language back over 3,000 years.
3,000 years, yeah. And so it's just, some things have gotten politicized over the years, especially in like the 1900s into the 2000s and that kind of thing. So it's good to know that the Irish language,
it does, and there is a place for all of that,
of course.
And we all have to recognise it and accept it, and you can have your pros and cons against it. But the lovely thing about it here is that the language is vibrant. It's people come in here and they might come for the music, they might come for classes, they might come for a concert, they might come just because they like the place. But without knowing it, they're picking up bits of the language.
Yeah, 100%.
And it works really well.
People go in and out of Irish and English here all the time. They'll like start in English and then they'll end in Irish, or they'll use a word in Irish and then they'll just add the word in English if they need to, and it comes in and out. And I've picked up a few words, but obviously not fluent in any way, shape, or form. But this is like a real. The people use it as fairly commonly.
Well, it is. It's a means of communication. That's what I keep saying to people.
Yeah.
And the lovely thing is, everything we do here, we do it to the best we can do it. So when people hear of an Irish cultural centre and when they walk up the driveway, they walk and they go, wow.
Yeah, it doesn't seem...
Wasn't expecting this.
Yeah.
And then they come into the house and they start to walk around and go, Jesus, it goes on forever. And all that sort of stuff. Like, we've a recording studio upstairs. We're doing other stuff. We do all quirky stuff.
There's theatres and performance spaces and it's amazing.
Yeah. We won the national award against all organisations, professional and amateur, Pride of Place for the most creative initiative place in 2018, which was a huge honour to get. And we've also achieved official, in the first time in the history of the state of Ireland, there was an act in 2012 that gave the power to the minister to officially recognise areas outside of the Gaeltacht areas. And the Gaeltacht areas are areas of Ireland down in Waterford, Kerry, Connemara and Donegal, where Irish is the actual working, living language of the area. But they get the power to award an official status of Líonar Gaeilge, or Irish Language Network, to areas outside of these areas who had a strong tradition and had provided or submitted a 7-year language plan of how they were going to develop all their things. And we got that. First time anybody in this history of Ireland, in the Republic of Ireland, got it in 2019. So we're delighted with that. So we move forward with that. It's just for Clondalkin Village, and we got that recognition. We are the only community-based, non-for-profit social enterprise. Core aim is the Irish language in Dublin, which is
huge,
but scary. that there isn't an awful lot more. There are Gael skulls and there are pockets of community, but there's nothing like this.
Yeah.
And I suppose our greatest asset is the premises and everything, that we can do all this stuff. Like, I mean, you've been here and you've walked
you have
around.
the space to go.
Like, we've fantastic stuff, and we're really sustainable as well. We're into all of the whole thing, and everything we do, we pass on to our membership and people who visit the place. And we tell them, look, this is how we did it, and we help other people to do it. Yeah, it's great. It's a great old spot.
Funny question. I heard a rumor once, this could be not real, that it's connected to the Round Tower in some way via tunnel. Is that?
You got all of that. No, no. Here's I'll tell you. No, it's not.
Okay.
Then there was rumours that the Round Tower was connected to Drimna Castle, which is an old castle down in Drimna. That seems to have gathered a bit of speed and all that as well. To explain Clondalkin simply, and the reason I really don't think it's true, is we're on the edge of an esker. Where the Bellegarde Road is, there was an esker. So when glaciers melted, they dropped scree and thing. So when you go anywhere down below 3 to 4 feet in this whole area, it's pure slate and stone.
Okay.
So it's very, very, very,
very
we
hard.
found out we were trying to put a fence on the site here one day. We were trying to put poles into the ground, and just how we get a JCB bucket and we just pushed them and go into the ground, and they kept snapping. So we dug a hole and we found that we had to get rock breakers because it's all shale under the ground after a certain thing.
Found out
so
the hard way.
if there's a tunnel here, wow, they did hard to build it.
Very strong.
There's mad old stories going around about everything. Like in the house, there's unfortunately there was someone who lived in the house passed away in the house tragically. There's rumours of ghosts and spirits and all that in the house.
Have you ever seen a ghost in the house or no?
No.
That's fair.
Well, how will I put it? Things happen that science can't explain. Let's put it that way. I could tell you loads of stories and stuff. And people who have visited a place for different events. Like how we make income to try and pay all the bills is we rent out the building 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, commercially, for training courses, seminars, businesses, and anything that anybody wants to do. And there was one person who was here, and she said afterwards, I had only met her on the Sunday evening, by the way, she says, you've nuns in the garden. And I went, we've nuns in the garden.
Right now?
And she says, we were out doing our chanting, whatever they do, and says we're walking around and there was nuns following us. Now, I'd never been scared before in my life. Before Aras Cronain was built here, there was a little convent on the site, and they left in the early 1800s due to damp and unsanitary conditions. So you can take with that what you want, or you take what you don't want there.
I love a good ghost story. I do love it.
Michelle and myself, when we come in and open up the building during the day, we come in many years ago on a Friday morning, and we both come in the front door together. We unlock the building, unlocked it, and we close the door. And what we usually do is you usually come in and do a quick walk around the building to make sure everything's as it should be. The two of us opened the bar, and the two of us were standing there talking, and we saw somebody walk into this room here. And I turned to Michelle and said, "Have we a group in today? Just thought it was their meeting." And she went, "No." And then we kind of went, and we both saw something come in here. And the two of us walked in and there was nobody here. If Michelle wasn't there or I wasn't there, we would have said, "Oh, yeah."
No, sure.
But we definitely saw something come in here, and the two of us walked in and there was nothing here. So saying all of that, over the years I have been here very, very late, and I could be here on my own in the building up to 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and it's an old building, and I've never felt uncomfortable.
It's not a sinister presence.
It noises because it's old.
Old house.
It's an old house. It's a lovely old house, but it takes a lot to keep it functioning. Now, we've invested since the pandemic over €300,000 in, because it's a listed building status, we can't replace anything. Like the window in our glass in our windows is listed, so it's old original hand rolled glass. So when you're looking at it, you can see there that one to the left, it looks wobbly when you're looking out through the glass.
Oh wow,
that's hand rolled. And we've identified, if we were to we can't replace it with double glazing or triple glazing, we have to replace like with like, so we can only repair. We've identified and found somewhere in Belfast and in Germany who replaces that, will do it to the original.
No way.
And it's €470 a pane.
That'll do it. We've
one pane of glass upstairs. The guy who put the glass in etched his name into it, and it's J.T. Bennett, 21st of December 1881.
No way.
So he's etched. So you've all these quirky things. So it's the story. The house in itself is lovely as a house. People always say to me, I'd love to own a house like this. I'd say, you need to win the Euro Millions. You could invest €2 million in this building, and you would say, what you do with it?
Where'd it go?
Where'd it go?
Everyone wants a house with personality and character, which is like 100%, but then you need a special kind of person, and that special kind of person is also very wealthy.
Yeah. Well, you understand now, I mean, why people who lived in a house like this years ago had loads of servants, because there was no way you could maintain it. Like even just to clean it. Like you were to hoover this house, just do nothing else. You're talking a day to just do that. Not talking about cleaning the window. Like you would be just constantly on the back foot.
You have to do like one room at a time, and then just cycle. Old stuff is beautiful and amazing, but it's a job to keep it alive. So for sure. Are there any fun stories that you have about the Aras? Anybody who's visited here or anything that's happened here that's quite funny to you or interesting to you that you think people should know about?
We've had everybody visit here. We've had 3 presidents. We've had most of our
some very famous people.
We've had lots of Taoiseachs. We've had foreign ambassadors. I mean, we get used by enough. There's very few places like this in this part of Dublin, and we network really, really well. So I do an awful lot of work with our local government, national government, business, chamber of commerce, other bodies, and everything. So we would do lots lots of stuff with them all the time. So you would get, I mean, with the mayor of Tampa over here years ago, they were on a trade mission over to South Dublin, and he came a guy called Bob Buckthorne. We've had super musicians over the years.
I was about to say, you had some really famous musicians.
I mean, Keela live with us, as I call them. They're artists in residence, but they live with us.
Keela come here every year, is that right? And they use the big performance.
They use big performance space. They do concerts for us. I used to tour manage bands years ago in another life.
Wow.
Some of the bands I worked with would have used this as rehearsal space prior to going on the road and doing a tour. So there's some famous guys like
because there's
Andrew Strong from the famous movie The Commitments.
The
Waterboys used here to rehearse and stuff. And then a lot of trad, folky stuff would have used the place over the years. When the pandemic hit, we had to do something to keep money coming in, so we got into video production and we started with iPhones. Fast forward today, we do an awful lot of documentary stuff and editing and filming stuff for BBC Northern Ireland, Irish TV. That brings another income into us. Fingers in many pies, but the whole thing that goes through the whole lot is we greet people in Gaelic, we say goodbye in Gaelic, and we tell them what we're about, and they kind of go, wow, that's cool. It's just changing people's attitude towards our language and our culture. And you've been here in Ireland a while, so you can understand the diverse attitudes towards. Some people say, what's the point? And I get this argument all the time to go, what's the point? I say, you're dead right, what's the point?
Never mind. And
they go, you're not supposed to say that.
You're supposed to
I agree with you. Forget it.
Get rid of it.
No. And there's certain words in that we use in English that have derived from Irish. It's a beautiful language. What's that actor? Gabriel Byrne once described it. He says, probably the most poetic, romantic, descriptive language in the world. And I'll explain that to people, because Irish language describes what it sees. If I was to say to you, and I learnt this from a guy who from the Gaeltacht areas, and there's a basking shark, right?
Okay.
A basking shark is called, in Gaelic, it's called a lee fawn graine. Lee is the verb to lie. Lee fawn graine. Under the sun. Green is the sun. So it's the fish that lies under the sun. So
That's
it
so
lies
cute.
there. Another one would be daffodil. So it's called lus crumkin. Lus is a herb or a plant. Crum is the verb to bend, and kin is the head. So it's the flower of the hanging head.
The bendy head, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh,
and then the interesting thing then is that there's no such word as no or yes in the Irish language. So you can get a dictionary and you can look up the word no, you won't find it. You can look up the word yes and you won't find it. In Gaelic, a question is asked, you give a positive answer, a negative answer, or in Ireland what we do is really good, we give no answer at all, just talk around in circles. So that's it. So there's verbs with questions like, so are you well?
Yeah.
On will to come on. On will is are you. Ta may come on, I am good. Neil may come on, I am not good.
Yeah.
Were you good? On rev to come on. V may come on, I was good. Ni rev may come on. So there's no yes or no. Like I could say it simply, say on will to come on, and I said ta may go on, I say ta.
Yeah, ta.
And people think, oh, he just said yes. So what they're happening is they're translating from English.
Yeah, they're
to translate into English.
Yeah.
Whereas people always ask me, how do you say this in Irish? And I'd say, what are you trying to say?
Yeah, the attention is necessary.
Yes, because a word in Gaelic could take you 3 sentences. And the lovely thing about it too, which is what people really like, is that in English you would say, I have a cold, I'm angry.
Very straightforward. To the point.
In Irish, tá slide on orm, there is a cold upon me.
Yeah.
I don't own it.
I have hunger upon me, that kind of
Tá faragorm, anger is upon me. So it's not mine, I don't own it, it just happens to be here for the time. So it's very holistic.
It's quite nice as well, because then it recognizes that it's temporary as well, or like.
So if we were to speak English in Irish, if you know what I mean, we would be going around saying, it is that I do have a cold upon me today. And that's why people get all this big on the top of the morning to you. The anger is upon me for a while.
The anger is upon me.
Yes.
I love that though. It's so nice.
The sadness is with me for a while. It's not I am sad. You can get into all of that, and then you can see why people get into the language and get into the thing, and then there's the music and the song and everything else. And I know you're going to talk to a couple of other guys about the place. And one thing that Ireland is very famous for is ballads or old songs. And the reason ballads were written, just for all the people out there, is that Dort ban lum gorort ban lehi. A woman told me that a woman told her that a woman told her. Chinese whispers. If you tell somebody something, by the time it gets to that side of the room, it has changed. So what they did with historical things is they wrote ballads, which told a story and a bit of history, but it kept it intact. It was told as it was meant to be.
Word for word, yeah.
Word for word. And then we have in Ireland, it's called the Bail Idis. Bail is mouth and Idis is education. So the Bail Idis is passed from generation to generation to generation. Story.
Oral tradition.
So that's why we're great storytellers and great singers, and music is a great part of it, because that's what it is. My folks, my dad passed away last year, but they grew up, like, I mean, in Ireland where they went to school with no shoes or socks on their feet. This is only back in the 1940s, 50s. So they did all of that. No electricity, no running water, no TV. A neighbour had a radio, you know, and they've he lived a wonderful life that he got to see all of that.
A huge one.
Electricity come in, black and white TV, colour TV, men to the moon, airplanes.
Crazy.
When his siblings emigrated to England or went to the States, there was wakes in Ireland because you thought you would never ever see them again because it just wasn't a wake. Whereas now you can be anywhere on the planet in 24 hours.
Wow.
Or you can Skype somebody. Like who would have thought we were talking to each other on our phones 10 years ago? Ireland has really jumped in leaps and bounds in the last few years, and we've become a hub now for some of the biggest tech companies in the world.
Yeah.
And what we're trying to do with the language is keep all that moving with it.
Yeah.
And the final thing about Aras Cronain, you might have noticed this since you came into the place, we don't have TVs anywhere. You need to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
So there's a great community, and you'll be talking to Don in a while. He came to me with an idea about doing a coffee morning because we noticed that a lot of people who built Aras Cronain were retired or semi-retired, but we noticed that they weren't coming back out after the pandemic. They were anxious, nervous, blah blah blah. So we invited them to a coffee morning on a Friday, and we had HEPA filters and we sanitising stations and we had everything else going on.
Wipe down and everything.
Oh yeah.
Gloves and
But
masks.
fast forward to today, and it's free to them, and anybody's welcome. There's between 50 and 70 coming every Friday morning.
Every Friday morning.
Every Friday morning without fail. If you're around tomorrow, pop in, or next Friday and you'll see it. Men, women, widowers, all that. Singing songs. There's two guys, Don and Jerry, who do MC. They make the tea and they pour the tea, so nobody can get up and do it. It's all free. They make the tea if some ladies come in. They pour the tea for them. The people baking cakes. They play a few tunes. They sing a few songs. But the other thing is that they look after each other. So if they come some week and say, anybody seen Mary this week?
Yeah,
no.
she's not
Hold
here.
on. Mary, where are you? Oh, well, I wasn't feeling to it. Paddy, have you got the car? Yeah, Paddy's on his way around to pick you up. So you've got that social community. And I often say to Don, outside of buying the place, it's probably one of the best things we've done. It really is community at its best. But all of those people are coming. Some of them will be fluent Irish speakers. Majority of them, no. And would have no necessity to use the Irish language in their life. Now, they all have their cúpla focal, their few words of Irish, and they picked it up naturally. And that's the lovely thing about it. So yeah, the Aras is a unique place.
It is a unique place. Very special.
Met with EU representatives years ago. We were looking at trying to get funding and stuff, and they were saying, what category do you come under? And then when they were finished with us, they said, you guys nearly tick every box.
Yeah.
From young to old, to youth, to married, to unemployed, to education, to culture. They said, we haven't come across a place like this in all of our travels. We've come across cultural centres, community centres, but you guys encompass the whole lot. And the lovely thing about it is we'd love to get more funding to help us do what we do. And you know, if there's any philanthropists out there who want to throw money at us, we'll gladly invest it. This will be here.
Yeah.
Generations down the road. We have safeguarded it that way that it can never be sold. And hopefully we'll get more people to come along and take up, because I'm not going to be here forever, just take up the role and move along. Colm is doing great stuff with the music. I mean, he's managed to capture that cohort from 16 to 40 age group that we weren't catching.
Yeah.
And they were coming and they do the Troubadour night and Managra, which is Women of Love. That's on, and all these artists come sing free. The place is full every Friday. It's free, but it's sold out. You have to book your table. But the lovely thing I've noticed that a lot of them now on their social media and stuff are using bits of Gaelic.
Yeah.
We never asked them. We never made it a condition. They just, from being here, kind of, you know, we should be proud of this.
Yeah.
This is what makes us different from everybody else on the planet.
Yeah.
So, and they've started to take that.
Yeah.
And they just kind of go, job done. You know,
taking a little bit with them.
Take a little bit with them. Yeah. I could talk all day about the place because I mean it's what I do.
Please.
I am passionate about it, and I think it's a great facility. Clondalkin, we are so lucky in Clondalkin to have it, and to have the people who had the vision to do this and acquired and purchased this house way back. Because if you were trying to do it today financially, it just would be you couldn't.
It's such a beautiful backdrop to what you guys are doing as well. Like I know it's part of the community and part of the history of Clondalkin, but I think also it just is obviously gorgeous, and so that makes it a little bit easier to get people in, you know, which is great. Yes. Last but not least, how is the Guinness here? Is it a good pint?
Pint here is amazing, and I don't mean that, but Guinness have been very good to us over the years in that they've tried out technology and stuff. But what we would sell in a year, the local pub would sell in an hour on a Sunday afternoon. Okay. That's so we wouldn't have a huge turnover, but over 70% of our sales are Guinness.
Oh yeah, fair enough.
The pint is amazing. The only problem is you can never drink one. It has to be 2 or 3.
It's like crisps or something. You can't just.
But it is, it is, and
it's a good pint.
It is. It seriously is. Yeah. You come down and say, I'm not having a pint, and then you have one, and then before you know it, the whiskey's okay too. But it is lovely, and the bar is very important to the place.
Yeah.
Because we are fortunate. We've tried music here every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night throughout the year, and anybody's welcome to come in. Visitors are welcome to come to Aras Cronain, just to let people know as well.
Always,
We have membership, and I would always say to people who would like to take, they're interested in membership, come down and see the place first, because Being a member doesn't just mean taking a fee and that's it and walk away. When you come in, you're buying into the whole thing of what we're trying to do, and we encourage people to get involved. So if people are doing that, we would say, do that.
The membership is part of it. I think people say they come for the bar and then they end up staying for everything else. You know what I mean? First time I came down here, they're like, "Oh yeah, sure, we'll go down the Aras, we'll have a few drinks, and then after, obviously, you come down and then you get to know everything else and you kind of get to see everything and experience everything. And know what
people can be who they want when they come in here. And as I say, people come here for their own free will, and you probably get it too as well. And a lot of people get it when you go into it. There's a lovely vibe in the place when you get here. There's a nice energy in the whole place, as some people say, because people come here for their own free will, and anybody comes here to come to enjoy themselves.
Yeah.
So there's nobody forced to come here. You don't have to. You make a conscious decision to come here. Most people come here to enjoy themselves. That's the lovely thing about it.
It's an intentional community. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time. What are you up to now? You have to.
No, I've two guys from BBC Northern Ireland once used to place to film a documentary.
Oh my god, how's my hair? Don, thank you so much for coming in. What is your name and your responsibility here at the Aras?
My name is Don Harper. I've been a member here for about 32 years. My responsibilities are, I'm a member with a heart for the Aras.
For the
The Aras is in my heart.
Oh wow.
Yeah, Imachri, as we say in Irish. Imachri. I've just fell in love with the place when I came here with a friend of mine many years ago, as I say, about 32 years ago maybe. We got shown around the place. My friends, we sat down with a nice pint of Guinness. Right? Good Guinness, great Guinness here at Aras. And my friend just said to me, there was music playing, there was a fire lighting in the heart, and we were sitting with 2 pints of Guinness, and he said, "I'm home." And that explains, that's the best way I can tell you that I feel about here. It's like another family, and I care for the place. The members work here, like I've done bar, I've done door, I've done cleaning. People care for it, you know. So it doesn't run on huge funding. It runs on good heart and good people good people that participate.
Volunteering.
Yes, huge.
So you're a volunteer member here at the Aras?
Yeah, it would be. One thing that I'm very proud of at the moment is something that's running for about 15 months now, is a coffee morning we started.
I was about to say, so how did that get started? Brian was telling us a bit out of the pandemic a little bit.
Well, what happened was we were sitting around talking, and I thought, we hadn't seen some of our older members back.
Yeah.
So we turned around and we said, what can we do? They won't come out at night time. Okay.
Fair enough.
So, like you would be surprised, and they won't come to crowded places at first.
Yeah, right? Yeah, because still it's still very scary.
So we started off with membership in mind, but then as we thought about it and as we opened it up, it became a community-based thing, and so now there are people who would never have set foot inside the Aras. They're here. There's nothing to stop them. They don't have to pay anything. They don't have to speak Irish, and they don't have to have a membership. So the door is open for everyone. And there's a group here in Ireland called Alone. It was formed by a fireman many years ago by William Birmingham, who found a lot of older people on their own, and he set up a help group for them. We've been in contact with them, and they have people coming to us, and they have come and give little talks as to what is good for people who have to live on their own and things like that. And we have had the Gardaí with the little chats about safety and things like that.
Okay. So helping senior citizens.
It's become a utility as well as a service. Do you know what I mean? And then things like bingo have come off it.
Yeah, fair.
Which people love, and we have a fun bingo. We don't take bingo seriously. Yeah. And we do it bilingually. We do it Oscailga.
I've been to bingo night actually. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
And we do it here Oscailga and Osberle, which means in Irish and in English. So we call them.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah. We call the numbers if 20. We'll call the numbers in the two languages. So everybody's welcome, you know what I mean, and feels.
And you might learn something a little bit. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Learn
and
English
the children are free to come. So people come with their families, which is lovely.
It's a lot of fun.
Oh,
it is
really
a lot of fun.
lovely.
And you get donations from like kind of local businesses sometimes to win. Like if you win a basket or something like that, sometimes there's little things.
Believe it or not, the donations really have come from inside the membership. We haven't opened it up to ask for outside help yet.
Okay, I remember I have donated something to like the bingo night here. I crocheted something or something.
Great.
Now I'm remembering. So
yeah, but we haven't gone to the big businesses yet. What we'll do is, and the only reason that we haven't is because the membership has been so kind, you know?
Yeah.
They want to see this succeed. And some people that do it, like it's so funny, they come to the bingo and they might win their own prize back, you know?
Not bad. Nothing gained, nothing lost.
We have sisters who actually bring presents, and one sister might go home with the other sister's present.
And then just use it and look at her like...
Yeah. It has grown into something we couldn't believe.
Clondalkin's quite a strong community.
Oh, very much so.
And this is...
It's a great little village.
When I came here 7 years ago now, I moved directly into Clondalkin, and I was telling Brian, it reminds me kind of like in the past, in like a Brooklyn kind of neighborhood where your building would be your community and you knew everybody in the building, but at the same time, if somebody were to move into the building, they're just part of the community now. Like that's just how it's a very special kind of community that still is a village that, you know, it takes a village to raise a kid. It takes a village, or like, you know, it takes a village to, this is still a village. This is still a community that you can depend on and talk to.
We haven't really advertised this outside of the hours because word of mouth has got out and people come because this coffee morning starts off as a chat and somewhere to come to chat with friends or to meet new friends. We've had people who have come and met people they haven't seen in 50 years. I have a really good experience of a man who came here from a loan. He was brought in by a loan. He lived in 39 on the road, right? Number 39. A lady who was her first day here said, 39? She says, what road is that? She said, I live in 38. I don't know you.
Who are you?
But it just happened that the numbering was off at an angle.
Kind of,
But they got chatting and, you know, like...
And now they're neighbours and they know each other.
50 years living together and they hadn't spoken, you know?
Yeah, but then now he has somebody near him that he can talk to, or like if he needs anything, he can give her a call. Like
We're breaking down barriers here with Café La Cordia because people think this is... Once you come in this door, you have to speak Irish. And people were afraid of it. You know, it was like a barrier.
Yeah.
So that barrier has come down because there are people coming in and knowing now that they are welcome to speak any language they wish. And if we greet them with Falchiroth or Cunasatatu or whatever, Majid there, and we see a little blank there, we'll say, how's it going?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And you can answer in English as well. If you know what it is, but you don't know how to respond.
Exactly. And they're very welcome to do that. Like we've seen some response to it in that people have taken up the Irish classes because they say, this is a nice thing to do. Because they're participating and seeing that there's a lovely family atmosphere here, they want to engage more with it. So they come to the classes, or we've a volunteer group now who become members and they volunteer and they help clean the gardens and do little bits and pieces, and it's become something to outreach for them. Do you know what I mean? Take them away from their comfort zone of sitting in the house watching TV and these sort of things.
Keeping yourself to yourself. It's a real community centre.
And within an hour of being here, 11:30, there's a sing-song and music going. I mean, the place is rocking. It's just a completely different place, and you'll brighten somebody's day by being here. And like, there's a little Nina, the creche out the back here. So we encourage the mothers to come in and so bring down the age group. So it's not all older people. They come in. They're not talking about who died or whose ailments are had. It turns into, oh gosh, they have this.
Look at this. How old are you? Where are you going to school? Yeah,
exactly. Do you know? So there's other interests here.
Yeah.
You know, nobody leaves here like feeling down the mouth. There's a great feeling coming in here. Yeah. That's only because there's a welcome on the mat for them. There's a meal of Falchiroth, a really good welcome here. Nobody would come in the door that wouldn't feel, even if they come in on their own.
You wouldn't leave on your own.
No, but the thing about it is, that sounds bad. Actually.
Oh, sorry. Forget it. That's not that kind of bar.
If they come in and they don't know anybody, I'll chat to them and I'll introduce them to somebody that I think would be their equivalent for talking to and that. You know? But there's little groups here, like, and there are ladies that maybe they're widows or some of them, their husbands are in residential care, and they're a support group to each other. So a lot of things have happened because of this now that we didn't foresee, but we're encouraging. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
So, and then the fact that
people will do what people do and take it and run
exactly. With it. And some of the musicians that play here, we have a man that gets up and does the hokey cokey. It's like an exercise class, isn't it? They love it, you know.
Yeah.
They get up every now and again and do that. And my own grandson comes down. We have kids come here during holidays, and the kids all mingle with them, like, and they love it.
Yeah.
Do you know?
And then they'll grow up and they'll start keeping more things alive.
Yes. And my own grandson now, Charlie, he has he's sort of become attuned to older people who are sitting on their own. Aww. He'll go over to them and he'll have a little word with them, and like, he has friends here.
Yeah.
Fans, as he calls them. He's Asian.
Fans, yeah.
He calls them his fans. He calls them his fans. Do you know, he loves them as much as they love him. He loves coming here. This place is in his heart now, and I'm so happy with that.
Yeah.
Because this place is in my heart, and to be able to pass that on to my children or my grandchildren is
so nice.
It feels like a lovely gift to give them, you know?
Yeah, it feels special. And then when they come here, they'll think of you.
Well, because I'm not going to be around forever, you know. So
nobody is.
The big thing to take away from here is that everybody cares for everybody. If there's a problem, that people will be there for them. We've had fundraising things here that have brought extraordinary amounts of money in because people care for their friends. Someone will come up with an idea. I must mention, actually, with Café La Cordia, we have home baking.
So people bring in their own.
Yes, there are ladies that come in, like Hazel and Susan, who bake every single week tables of food. They might bake scones or gur cake, as we call it. It's a fruit cake. And the thing about it is, we try to get to know everybody. It takes a few weeks sometimes to get to know the names. But when you do, we're all friends then, and there's a greeting, and you don't just say, hello, how's how's it going? You say,
Yeah.
hi Mary, how are you?
Yeah,
Do you know
how are
that sort
your
of way?
kids? How are
And
you?
it makes such a difference to be able to greet people by their name. You know what I mean, Hannah?
You know what? I do know that. Thank you, John. Clondalkin seems like you don't see a lot of those communities anymore.
No.
So it's nice. Quite embodies the land of a thousand welcomes. You know what I mean? So
It certainly does, because it has the effect of a village. It's called a village.
Yeah.
And this village could be down the country.
It could, yeah.
It could be the fact that it's where it is a bonus to a lot of people.
I was about to say.
But it could be sitting in the middle of the country and surrounded by countryside, because the people that are here look after. There's a good community spirit here.
Yeah, there really is.
Actively involved in it, and we have a good council here and everything else.
I think it's interesting. I was saying to somebody, I think it was Oisin, Clondalkin seems a really great place to like raise families and be part of a community, because it feels like a kind of a country village where everybody kind of knows each other and is close. But it's close enough to Dublin where it's it's much more diverse than a country village might be. There's a lot more access to things like that the city has to offer that you wouldn't get in a country village. And I was like,
you can have this if you want it, or you can go into the city.
Yeah.
It's not too far away.
It's not too far away, yeah.
But what's here, as I get older, I want to be here more. Do you know that sort of way?
Yeah.
Because I feel it's an art intac, right? Which is a wonderful place for me. As I say from the very start, I feel at home here. I have a lot of friends here, and I hope I exude the same welcome to people that I got when I came here.
I think so.
Like I got a wonderful welcome from two of our older members. There's a picture here behind me. It's one of our founder members, Seamus O'Cahasick, a wonderful man, and did great work. We wouldn't have this place here if it wasn't for him, and his ilk. I'm so glad to be able to talk to you about it and let people know that it's here. Yeah. And please come and visit us. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Hannah. And can I just say, Hannah, I've looked at your YouTubes. You do a wonderful job, and thank you for this. It makes us feel that we can welcome. I hope you felt welcome for it, but I hope it makes us feel that we can spread the word a little bit more about the place.
Always.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to talk about it.
Anything you want to shout out about the Aras or about Clondalkin that you?
All I'm saying to everybody is, please come and see us. There is no barrier to you coming in here. So there's a wonderful amount of culture, and this Aras exudes that. If you want to know more about your area, you want to know more about your language, your dance, your music, it's the best of everything. Do you know what I mean? And you have people like Colm Gavin who brings a huge energy to the place, music-wise and age-wise. Like for a young man to be and do what he does for the Aras, he's an extraordinary lad.
Yeah, he's the one that kind of got everything together as well. Like he's been my kind of connection to the Aras, and I'll talk about him when he gets on there.
So we're very blessed with the people around us. But I think karma, good people and good places bring good people and good 100%. Places to it. So I think we're lucky, but we're also, as long as we keep doing things with our heart and not for monetary gain or for any other ego-based gain, I think we'll attract the good people.
As long as the intention.
Look, we brought you here, didn't we?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
I'm here.
So please come and visit us. You're very welcome. For music, for any functions, for if you want to learn the Irish language, we're here to help you. Well, I hope you won't be a stranger now here, Hannah. I hope you'll come in and see us.
Well, I'll be
and send your friends here.
Oh yeah, I'm always here.
Bring them here. They're always welcome. Yeah, but they're always welcome. Everybody's welcome here.
Thank you so much.
They only have to knock on the door or push the door, and we're here for it.
Now, I have an intro for Colm. This has been the man of the hour. So Colm, just as a little bit of an intro, my own intro is that Colm and I have known each other for about 7 years on and off, and like kind of in each other's vicinity. And I met you here, and then you started doing the Friday night events that go on, and I'll talk about that in just a second. But he was the one that kind of suggested doing pub interviews in the first place, right? So we were at a Mnog Raw, which is one of the women's music nights here, and he was like, you know what you should do? You should interview Ciarán Kavanagh in the Gravediggers, and that's how that got started. And then I was like, you know what, you're right. And he was like, you should do here as well. And so I was like, you know what, you're right. And so I started doing more pubs, and now finally on the Aras. And so thank you very much and welcome. And celebrated Dublin songwriter Colm Gavin is signed to BEO Records, home of the First Lady of Celtic Music, Moya Brennan. His initial releases, Your Endless Slumber and A Voice for the Urban Darlings, both reached the top of the album charts in both Ireland and the UK at the time of their release, with singles from the album gracing contemporary music charts right around the world. Gavin's witty onstage performance and sensitive compositions solidify his position as a singular artist and have seen him grace reputable stages like Vicar Street, Bordgosh Energy Theatre, and the National Stadium in Dublin to City Winery in the legendary West 44, Broadway, Jazz Mecca, Birdland Theatre in New York City. Sidelong to his solo musical accomplishments, Colm Gavin is fast becoming one of his native Ireland's most
prolific songwriters and musical collaborators, having penned tunes for and with artists like Eurovision winner Charlie McGettigan, Claudia Buckley, Kira Dingham, Sinead Black, and many more besides. His latest single, Song for Sam, has spent the better part of a month on the RTE Radio 1 recommends list and is presently in circulation on BBC Radio. And I'm going to throw in a few quotes there that some people have said about him, because his music is honestly beautiful. And if you're into pop folk, I would say, is that what you would call yourself?
Yeah, kind of folk singer-songwriter with a little bit of jazzy splashes and that kind of thing.
100%. Very beautiful. And he's on Spotify and everywhere you can find music. Thank you very much for being here. What is your name and what do you do here at Aras Cronain?
So my name's Colin Gavin. Like pretty much everybody here in Aras Cronain, my role is primarily volunteer, but I suppose the events side of things. So I run a regular Friday gig here, which began as a thing called Troubadour. The idea of it was, in about 2018, I was kind of fluctuating between what I was doing in the music industry and what I wanted to do. And so heroes of mine would be people like Jim Croce, Harry Chapin, Dean Friedman. And so I was reaching a point where I wanted to be more specific about where I wanted to go direction-wise with my music. And so I was looking at taking up a residency somewhere. Aras Cronain offered here. And it started off as a night in the Clued bar, which was to be, at the time, a bi-weekly thing. From the first time that I did it, because it's quite a small room, it holds about 30 to 40 at max capacity. There was a number of musicians in the room who were just attending the event, and it felt appropriate at different times to say, Party, get up and sing a song, or Don, you'll do a song, or whatever. And so that spirit, the spirit of that atmosphere kind of grew and grew, which effectively gave the shape for what the event would ultimately become, which was kind of like a singer-songwriter showcase as opposed to an open mic. Open mics are fantastic, and I learned so much from open mics like the International Bar, Song Cycle on a Monday night in Whelan's. They have their place, and it's a hugely educational endeavour. But what I wanted this to be was a songwriter showcase. So as opposed to having like 25 artists perform, to narrow it down to more like 4 or 5, and you could have somebody who was performing for the very first time side along to somebody who maybe had just signed a record deal, or somebody else who was at the tail end of their career, kind of the autumn of their career. The format has grown and developed in different ways, but that's the essence of it.
I've seen some really incredible performances here and some really beautiful artists, and including yourself. It's so interesting to get kind of the diversity, like you said. There's people who have just kind of started, there's poets, there's musicians.
Absolutely. And again, it's somewhere that the spirit of the place has always been about community, but community in the wider sense of the word. So people talk about the distinctions between the music business and the music scene. It's two very distinctly different things, because business is business at the end of the day. And I feel like the wider Irish musical community has always had a familial quality to it, which is something that in places like this really gets given center stage, I think.
What are the Friday night showcases? There are a few different types, that kind of thing. So I've been mentioning Managra, but there are a few different ones, is that right?
Yeah, primary one is what we call Kjol's Speakeasy. So the room in here, the Sean Rasheems, that we affectionately refer to as the Speakeasy, and that could be anything from, as you said, poets to singer-songwriters. We've had comedy, all manner of things, and so that's kind of like a hodgepodge of an evening. Managra is a celebration of female artistry in Ireland, and that doesn't necessarily mean that the artists have to be from Ireland. This is just presently what's happening in the artistic scene. The art that is in Ireland, as opposed to having been born in Ireland or being whatever quote unquote Irish actually means. So we there's a multitude of showcases. Managra is one that's become quite popular. Like we have one this week, for example, and we have performances from people like Micah, Kate Deneen, Fiona. Like it's a showcase of really the caliber of musicianship and artistry that we have in the country at the moment. And for me, it's an honor to be able to give these people a spotlight and to show the caliber of work that they're creating in an environment like this, because an old house like this one, which was built in 1832, has a certain hallowed resonance to it that really seems to marry with the evening quite well. Because it's almost like going back in a time capsule from the moment people come in the front door. It's like stepping back in time, or just from the time they come up the avenue.
It kind of feels like you're an honored guest when you walk in, because it's such a big, beautiful house, and then the entranceway is so open, and there's like a huge staircase, and like you're like, oh.
Totally, and that room in particular would have been used for entertainment, like this room, high ceilings and things like that. So it certainly feels like we're chiming in with whatever the atmosphere was.
Would you say that the musical nights are a communal experience for Clondalkin, and then would you say it kind of extends out into other places in Dublin as well, or how would you kind of explain the community impact on the music nights?
Yeah, by virtue of the fact that a lot of the performers come from all parts of Ireland. Like I mentioned Micah, who comes from Tipperary. We have performers who come from Kerry, Mayo, Clare, Connemara, the north of Ireland, all over the place. But I think because where Aras Cronain is situated, this was originally Orchard House because we're on Orchard Road. I call it's the creative epicenter of Clondalkin village, and it's because it's not on Main Street, it's somewhere that you have to make a conscious decision to go to. So there's a little bit of a pilgrimage, if you're getting the 13 bus as well. Which you could almost come from the Gravediggers to here.
Exactly, actually, yeah, you can.
You could. I think places like that, like the Gravediggers, like Aras Cronain, are institutions in this country. And the fear for me was always, when we came back after the pandemic in September of 2021 with the revival of Live, this is a space that doesn't get funding to stay open. There's no bursaries to keep us alive. So it's events that we live and die by. Brian, my uncle, came to me and said, is there any way that you can invite fellow musicians to come and perform? We don't really have a budget to pay them what they deserve and what they should be getting, but to kind of explain to them what the place is, the energy, the intent, and what this place represents. And anyone who's come here really chimes in with what the spirit of the place is all about. 100%. And once they do, they come back again and again.
Yeah, it is just a very special place, isn't it? And especially in terms of music, you guys have all the setup to do. There's a couple different rooms, that one being kind of the most popular.
It is.
There was a show that was just your music and it was outside, and there was a lovely, like, just kind of sunny day about it. And then all of these young people were coming in, and it's just a very special place for music in general, especially because music is such a pinnacle part of Irish culture that keeping it alive and promoting new artists is something that's so cool about this place. I just absolutely love it. What gave you the idea? I mean, I suppose it was just, as you said, coming out of the pandemic. What was the initial thing about making it a showcase rather than an open mic night? Was it just you were making so many more connections with musicians and you thought this would be great to have themes or
It's a brilliant question. So when I was growing up, I studied music around the corner in the Clondalkin School of Music. Peter Stanton was my teacher, and I wish you could have met him because he was a Renaissance man if there was ever one. He looked like Roald Dahl could have written him. He had a twizzled moustache. Perfect. United colour of Benetton jumper.
That's exactly how I imagine him.
No. You know, the Farah trousers with the perfect seam. He was just, he's so eccentric and so quirky, and he was somebody that I really feel his absence today. He was my teacher for over 16 years, and he became one of my closest friends. But he would always talk about this concept that the best thing you can do when the light's shining on you is to reflect it. So so if you find yourself, like, it's always weird talking about yourself, but my music was garnering a little bit of attention around that time, and so I felt like, while I had friends in the business who were all seemed to be on the uprise, wouldn't it be great if you could pair them alongside local musicians or musicians from anywhere in Dublin, and that the artist who's performing for the very first time would be given the same treatment, would be given the same allotted time slot, and be on the bill with somebody who is already quite established and is maybe going on tour or making their first record or that kind of thing. Bringing them up as well, but also giving them the sense that you are as important here as this person. The difficulty with an open mic is you could go and sign up and get one song amongst 20, and a lot of the people, like 95% of an open mic audience, tends to be the people who are performing because you can allow for that many. So we wanted to build the showcases here because we have a good reputation in the village for spotlighting really good music and having great traditional Irish nights, that people would support it, give it a chance, and then hopefully take to it in a way that they'd come back again and again. And fingers crossed, so far that's been the case. So.
That's been happening. You've invited a couple of my friends as well, like Sarah Kane. She was so excited to come and perform, and then she's excited to come back at any time. And then it's also, not to be weird, a really good photo op, like, you know what I mean, like a very good, like, look and you watch it, like, come down to Aras Cronain, and it brings a younger crowd in as well, I think.
It does. You mentioned people like Sarah Keane, the artist formerly known as Rolette.
Exactly.
And so many others. And again, I'm going right by people, but we've had Mundy, El Shadavi, Dean Friedman, again, someone who I absolutely idolise. He's somebody, I'm on tour with him this year, but he is somebody who's just been such a great, and again, like, embodies what I'm talking about, that spirit of the best thing you can do when the light's shining on you is to reflect it. And he's given me opportunities that otherwise I just wouldn't have had. If there's ever a situation where I can lend a hand to somebody like Seamus Ong, who's a brilliant uilleann piper, Sive Keane, who's just a standalone, one of the best artists that I know, anybody like that, and they're in abundance here in Clondalkin and further afield. If there's something that you can do and you know you can, I don't understand why you wouldn't do it.
Just as a personal thing, what got you into music? That was like weird. Have you always been the music guy?
The music guy.
So
like I said, I studied in the Clondalkin School of Music, and my teacher Peter was somebody
when you were a kid?
I was probably about 11 or 12. Peter was somebody who, his love of music was so infectious that you couldn't it just emanated out of him. So he used to have these song composition classes on a Saturday morning in the School of Music, and he would look at a piece by Jerome Kern or Harold Arlen, who famously wrote a lot of the music for The Wizard of Oz, and he would explain, what's happening here technically. So like if you have 8 notes in a scale, this is a 1-6 movement, this is a 1-4, this is a Picardy third, this is modulation, that kind of thing. And so in the beginning, it's like learning a new language. It's double Dutch to anybody.
Yeah.
And then as time goes on, it's your reference point when you start to write music. So I like to think of myself as a singer-songwriter first. So as you mentioned, I've written for and with a lot of different artists, both in Ireland and abroad. And that early schooling is what I still reference. So if somebody comes to me and says, I'd like to have a song that sounds like, a pop country tune. Well, then you know the kind of vernacular that you need to be working in. You know the musical terminology.
Yeah, you know what kind of
in the technical sense, rather than just, it sounds like, and then fill in the blanks.
The end product, it goes down to how that works out.
For sure. And so it was that early schooling that I still reference today. For me, Hannah, it's never... I was reading an article before I came in to talk to you about Harry Chapin in the 80s, where the power went out at one of his gigs. And so he just got into the middle of the audience and started to play, took requests, sang with the people in the audience. And for me, a lot of my education came from being a busker. And so that spirit of, if you take away the PA, if you take away the lights, if you take away the sound system,
the equipment, everything,
you can still be with the people and sing your songs. That to me, like the essence of that is, I'm always trying to stay really close to that.
Now, I'm not asking you to pick favorites, but what would be your favorite kind of night to be doing? Would it be the Managra? Would it be the other stuff? Like, what would be your kind of favorite night to be hosting and to be seeing the crowds for?
It's very hard to choose. Managra has been hugely successful, and I think that's a testament to just the level of artistry in the country, and further afield too, because we've had performers like Emily Sangder, who's from Eugene, Oregon, Ali Way. There's so many. There's one that's relatively new that's called the Skylark Sessions, and the Skylark Sessions is named after Mick Christopher, who was very much involved here during his, I suppose, the latter part of his lifetime. He passed away tragically very young, but his parents, Harry and Vaughn, are still very involved here. His first album was called Skylarkin. So Skylark is a nod to Mick. And the night is basically in the Clúd. You can't move but for hitting a musician.
Yeah.
And it's just swapping songs and swapping stories.
Is it like a real jam session?
It is very much. You say Dee Cullen will sing one song, and then Sive Keane will sing another. Barry Corvin will recite a poem, and John Lynch will do a tune, or his boys, Tig and Rory.
A lot of original work there as well then,
You would, but it's kind of like, it's more like a house party. Okay. So they'd sing anything from Prince
very casual,
Yeah, they'd sing anything from like a Dubliner song to, like I said, recite a poem, or an original piece of music if it calls for it. But it's not strictly an original music night. Like, it would be more so if you imagine the afters of a party. In a house, it's
sticking around 2-3 a.m. kind of sticking around.
Exactly. Hopefully it doesn't feel that raw.
Hopefully nobody's crying at the end.
No. Growing up in Clondalkin was very idyllic, and I think still is, because there's a vibrant sense of community, and it's in everything. Whether you're part of the Round Towers GAA club, a regular at Café La Cordia, if you're a regular in Aras Cronain, I think there's that sense of, which I think is lost in a lot of communities, where there isn't that familiarity, I suppose. And it's one of the reasons why so much of my heart is invested in this place, because you'd hate to leave and in 20 years come back and see that completely dissipated, And somewhere like this could so easily end up being flattened and turned into apartments if it was left in the wrong hands.
Optimized or whatever
the word is.
Whatever the word they want to use.
That they use. I would hate to think that anybody would walk in here and like eyes would follow them around the room in that kind of critical way. I remember meeting you for the first time, and you were knitting like a little doll.
Guilty.
at the counter. No, and that's, that really is, that's a big part of your whole artistic essence, isn't it? Which is lovely to think. And that was back in like 2018, 2017.
Yeah.
But what was nice about it is, even from the first time that I met you, within about 4 or 5 minutes, it did feel like we were old friends, which is a quality that you don't. It takes a place like this, because if you meet in a busy hotel lobby or something, you'd be more inclined to just go right by somebody.
Yeah, there's a vibe here as well.
There is. And the same with the likes of the Gravediggers. There's no TV, no radio, no band. What do you do other than talk to somebody?
I think that's a big part of it. There's not a lot of like distraction from what you're doing, besides maybe music or whatever it is. And then after that, the song ends. You're like, that was lovely, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's not forced conversation, but it's conducive to conversation. For a place that's sort of, it's an unneth culture, and there's a hard emphasis on the Irish language. I've never felt, because I'm not fluent. I have enough enough conversation, but I wouldn't be fluent. I wouldn't be leaf, as they'd say. Like leaf. with an A at the end. I never felt like an outsider because I didn't speak Irish. And I think that's maybe one of the false notions or preconceptions about the place, particularly when you talk to taxi drivers who say, I wouldn't go in there, it's an Irish club.
Yeah.
I just think that's always been the association locally, is that it's the Irish club.
Yeah, it is. But at the same time, talking to Zan and Breen as well, they were like, if they leave with 2 or 3 words, we've done our job. Like if you come in and, you don't speak Irish, but at the end of the day you say like, oh, Gurmila, and then you leave, like that's job done.
Absolutely. I mean, naturally you'd anticipate when people are primarily singing in English that you'd receive a certain amount of pushback, but I think it's been overwhelmingly positive. I think most people understand that the essence of what we're trying to do, there's an integrity behind it, which is basically to give artists of all levels and of all descriptions. So somebody like Mundy would come in and perform. Now Mundy could be playing to 3,000, 4,000 people, and yet somebody like Sive Keane, who is up and coming and releasing incredible music but is new to the scene, would get to share a stage with somebody like that. There aren't many places you can do that.
Yeah, and now just some things for you. Where can people find you both online, and where are you going to be going and playing next?
Me? Yeah. Well, the best place to find me is Instagram. So Colm Gavin, all one word. On Facebook, Colm Gavin Music, central to the conversation we're having here. If you, Aras Cronain and Kyoto Speakeasy don't distinguish, so it's all the one page. So if you just go to Aras Cronain's Instagram or Facebook page, you can see all of the up-to-date Imuchtaín events that we have happening. Like during the summer now, we're going to have Showbio, which was what you were at last year at my gig, and that's a real treat.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, because it really feels like we're in the centre point in the village.
Yeah.
That's a 2-week festival that takes place over both weekends.
That's awesome.
But there's events during the week as well. That's one to look at, I'd say. This has been a great focal point for me as I recorded my whole most recent album in the Sharma Sheemsa at the piano.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and some of the most memorable gigs I've ever had, like as you mentioned, out in the tent at Showbio or in the Holla, have all been here. But I think ultimately what it comes down to is, as a performer, and this is, again, Peter Stanton taught me this, there's only 2 rules in performance. One is get their attention and the other is keep it. That's it. In a place like this, you can hone your craft in as much as it's going to be a quiet room, people are going to listen, they're there for the music, and you can try different things. Yeah. So you can try a new original song, maybe a cover that you're not too sure about. So this is a place for people to sharpen their tools, really.
Well, thank you very much, Colm.
Pleasure.
This has been great. Thank you so much.
You can find Colm here on all these places I'm going to put on the screen, editing, and then on tour
from May to September. So I'm going to be on the road, as I mentioned, with Dean Friedman. Myself and Dee Cullen, we're playing the Galway Folk Festival, we're playing Coins in Connemara, we're playing Pot Duggins in Ennistimon and Clare. Well, myself and Dean will be in Belfast. I'll be in Armagh with Dee Cullen. We'll be all over the place.
Thank you so much, Colm.
Thank you, Hannah.
Great. Thank you. Oh my gosh.
He's the one that set up all these interviews today and got the room and everything, so I really appreciate it. You've a friend of the channel, Colm Gavin.
Yeah, so I'm a YouTuber.
I've seen I just checked. What side did I not see?
Perfect. Who's this handsome man? Who is this? We're at even.
Yeah.
I was just kind of fangirling over Clondalkin for music
I
classes.
did the dance classes.
Did you do the dance class?
I did, yeah.
When I was a kid, I dabbled in a little bit of everything, and my parents signed me up for an Irish dance class in New York. I was not great at it. The teacher was like, she's really good.
Singer. Gurmila Mag with the Carja. The tough questions.
The tough questions. Yeah.
Let me say that's not really a good one to give you the...
I'll send you some pictures of him. You can put one on the screen here.
Can you hear my dog absolutely chowing down? He won't eat all day until the very end, and today he's decided to do it randomly at 3:30 in the afternoon. Sorry for the doggy ASMR if you're getting it. 6th or 7th century AD. 6th or 7th century.